Hey everybody, the test we'll be discussing today is called the lower extremity functional test. This test is a means of evaluating an athlete's lateral speed and agility. The test requires athletes to move, stop and start, accelerate and decelerate, as well as change direction in multiple planes of movement, all which falls under the category of agility. Now, agility can be further broken down into two subcategories of pre-planned agility and unplanned agility. Unplanned agility is more reactive in nature, requires an athlete to respond to a stimulus with a certain movement task. For example, cutting to get around a defender in a lacrosse game, or stopping to go retrieve a puck in a hockey game. Now, pre-planned agility is exactly what it sounds like. The athlete already knows the task they need to complete, it's just a matter of completing it. This test falls into that pre-planned category. I will now demonstrate the test. Following the demonstration, I will discuss some pros and cons of this particular test.
So to set this test up, you need about 10 yards of space, which I've measured out with a tape measure, with one cone at the beginning, one cone at the end. The timing will start when the athlete leaves the start line. They're going to sprint forward, touch the second cone, backpedal backwards to the first cone. They're then going to shuffle to the second cone. They touch the cone, shuffle back to the first cone, karaoke down to the second cone, touch the cone, karaoke back, touch the cone, and then they're going to sprint through the line. The timing will stop as soon as they cross that finish line.
So, now that we know how to set the test up and what it should look like, let's talk pros and cons. We'll start with the pros. First of all, it doesn't get much more accessible than this, right? You don't need a bunch of crazy technology or expensive laser timing gates. You really just need 10 yards of space, a couple of cones, a hand timer, and some athletes. I would also say it's appropriate for almost any age level. In reality, you won't be doing a lot of meaningful performance testing on younger athletes, but I would say it's age appropriate for almost anyone. On top of that, it doesn't take too long to complete, so if you have a large group of athletes, you kind of fire through this and you get a lot of information, right? Not only are you going to get physical data from their scores or their times, you're also going to be able to evaluate their movement, right? You're going to see them moving in all these different planes, stopping and starting. So you'll be able to gather a lot of information about your athletes that way as well. As far as cons go, there's not too many. I guess one thing I would identify is variability in movement between athletes, but as long as you're using the same general technique, I don't see this being an issue. The other thing might be the timing of the test could be an issue, but as long as you kind of use the same coach, the same equipment, for all your testing periods, you should be able to keep it as reliable as possible. And one final thought in the cons section would be the surface in which you're doing the test, right? If you're using an inappropriate surface where athletes are slipping or tripping and falling, not only is it going to affect the scores, but you're exposing them to injury risk, which you never want when testing. So in my discussion post, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the validity and the reliability of this type of test, but I appreciate you guys watching, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your discussion posts